And it's now past 7 o'clock. So what I'm going to do is open this evening's meeting of the Dartmouth Conservation Commission. This is our meeting for Tuesday, August 13, 2024. The meeting is being conducted remotely as a result of Governor Healy's signing into law on March 29, 2023. A further extension for the hybrid remote meeting options for municipalities. That'll extend us out through March 31, 2025. The meetings are accessible to the public, and if you'll note on the bottom of the screen, there is a raise your hand feature. If all else fails, wave your hand. You will be recognized and then unmute yourself to speak. This meeting has been duly posted on the town website in accordance with town bylaws and state laws. And with that being said, we will have a quorum tonight. We have 4 commissioners tonight, but that's the minimum for a quorum. So if anyone is here this evening with an application, whether it's a notice of intent or it's a field trip report, etc., and you don't feel comfortable having to get a unanimous vote, you can certainly request and we will grant you a continuance. But all the votes this evening, in order to be affirmatively passed, need a unanimous vote. So, and as we get to each of the matters, I'll ask if the applicant wants to proceed, and it's certainly the applicant's choice. Our first administrative item is to approve the minutes of July 9, 2024. May I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That passes unanimously. The second administrative item is to approve the field trip reports of July 23, 2024. May I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That passes unanimously. The final administrative item is to receive the minutes of the July 23, 2024 meeting. May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We're moving now to our field trip reports. In the the first is a request for determination of applicability, RDA, RDA 2418. It's from Linda Vandeveer to replace a damaged and pre-existing 80-foot boardwalk on Dartmouth Natural Resources Trust Star of the Sea Reserve within a bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regulations 310 CMR 10.02, 10.55, as well as Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaw. It's on land described as Map 40, Lot 5. It's off of Star of the Sea Drive. Mark, what is staff's recommendation on this request?
Yes, as the chairman read into the record, this is a run of boardwalk which is deteriorating and has been in a state of repair for a couple of years. It is within wetland, but it was previously approved. And as a public safety matter, certainly the replacement of this short 80-foot stretch is a prudent thing to do. Therefore, staff is recommending a -2 determination with our standard ECD conditions for soil and erosion control.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any questions? I don't see any, so I'll entertain a motion for a -2 determination with our standard EDC conditions. May I have that motion, please?
So moved. So moved.
We have a
Second.
motion seconded on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Just for full transparency to the commission and the public, I do sit on DNRT's finance committee. I do not think that role has any impact on my ability to vote on this. I therefore vote in favor. Yes.
Thank you. By the way, I don't think that is grounds for recusal either. So I concur with your decision.
Thank you.
Megan?
Yes.
And my vote is yes as well. That passes unanimously. Our second field trip report is a request for determination of applicability, RDA 2417 from Joshua Summonin, I'm sorry, for the removal and reconstruction of an existing accessory building within the existing footprint with no change in size, impervious area, or grading proposed. This is within a 200-foot riverfront area to a perennial tributary of the Pascamasket River. The applicable regulations 310 CMR 10.02, 10.58, as well as Section 2 of the Dartmouth law. The land is described as map 42, lot 50-2. It's at 369 Chase Road. Mark, what is staff's recommendation on this request?
Yes, this is a very deteriorated, dilapidated building, and is certainly a safety hazard for anyone on site. The request is reasonable. It is within the riverfront area. Yes, it happens to be really at the far extent between between 185 and 200 feet away from the river. There are structures, there are lawns in between this structure and the actual river bank or the bank full determination to the start of the river. And therefore, staff recommends a -2 as it is in riverfront area. We recommend a -2 with the condition that all work remain within the existing footprint.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any questions from any of the commissioners? Not seeing any. I'll entertain a motion for a -2 determination with the condition that all work remain within the existing footprint of structures being replaced.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Our final field trip report is a request for a certificate of compliance. It's on DEP file 15-2496, RCC 24-26. It's from Maria Lecca to replace an existing cesspool with a new Title V septic system. It's within bordering land subject to flooding and within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The land is described as map 25, lot 17. It's at 83 Rockadundy Road. Mark, staff's recommendation, please, on this request.
Yes, the work has been completed in full conformance with the plan of record. Therefore, staff is recommending a complete certificate of compliance in this matter.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance on DEP file 15-2496.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. That concludes our field trip reports. We're moving now to our public hearings. And the first is a continued public hearing, DEP file 15-2735. That's NOI 24-22. It's on the notice of intent from Sasha Rodricks for the construction of a single-family home and paved driveway and associated grading in the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regulations 310 CMR 10.02 and 10.55, as well as Section 2 of the Dartmouth bylaws. It's the land described as map 34, lot 2-2, otherwise known as Bakerville Vineyards, lot 5. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a second motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan?
yes,
My vote is yes as well. That passes unanimously. Mark, I see in red, it says lot still has not been released. Options to continue again. So we've continued this a few times because the lots haven't been released from the planning board. I think it was almost a month ago now, Mark. We were told that they were going to post a surety with the planning board or bond with the planning board to get the lots released. And I guess that still hasn't happened.
Well, I did submit you a summary of what's transpired. As of last week, the surety had yet to be posted. There was a meeting of the planning board that they failed to make quorum. So that meeting did not happen. And so we're still waiting for, as I understand it, the planning board to release to receive what they need to release the lot. That is yet to happen. And the earliest possible time for that to happen is August 19th at the August 19th planning board hearing. I have been in contact with Christian, who is lead on this. I'm getting feedback. I'm sorry. I don't know where it's coming from. I've been in contact with Christian Farland. I believe he's sitting in, although he's muted. At this point, the options in front of it. One is to continue yet again, should you desire to do that, although we've continued several times. And we have been told that this would be done. The surety would be posted, in accordance with planning board requirements. That is yet to happen, to my knowledge, and will not happen. The lot will not be released before the 19th. We have a meeting on the 27th. You can continue to that meeting. You can advise that they withdraw and reapply when they take care of business with the planning board. And of course, and this is not my recommendation for the record, but you can just deny flat out right now, since we have yet to get the information that we need to proceed. So I don't know if Christian has anything that he could add, should the chair desire that. But we're kind of, this is an ongoing situation. And it seems like every week or every other week, I'm checking in to see what the status is, and the status has not changed. I will say, as I stated last time, that staff conducted a site visit with Christian, and the proposal is largely approvable. There were some discussion items, which I won't specifically go into right now, but largely the project is approvable on an approved subdivision. The problem is the lots have not been released for development, and I don't, in my opinion, and I think the chair agrees with me, we cannot make a decision on lots that are not yet approved.
I do agree with you, Mark. For what it's
If
worth,
I,
for what it's worth on my end, I think given the nature of the request and the fact that there will be a meeting before with the planning board before our August 27th meeting, I'm inclined to give yet one more continuance, but a final continuance. So if this isn't ready to be addressed on August 27th, I'd be inclined to ask for withdrawal or else vote. Unfortunately, as Mark indicated, it's not his recommendation, but we have to have this move off the dime. We can't continue this month after month without any progress. It's just not fair to any of the abutters either, who probably now have long forgotten about the original notice they received in the mail. So to me, I think it's one more opportunity. I'd be happy to do that. If the applicant feels that they won't be ready by the 27th and they want it extended out further, I'd give that. But this will be the last continuance I will vote for. Anyone
Yeah,
else?
just for the
want-
record, Mr. Chairman, Christian Conlon, principal engineer and president representing the applicant. So the issue really isn't the bond, the cash bond issue. It was more of the title. I guess there's some easement issues they're trying to clear up in order for the bank to give the bond. We're hoping to have it cleared up for the next planning board meeting. And if not, I guess we would most likely ask for a withdrawal until it gets cleaned up. So I would appreciate one more continuance if you can.
Well,
Thank you.
do you think it would make sense to continue it out past our 27th? We do meet every other week. So this would be our first meeting in September, which would be second Tuesday in September. If that makes it easier, I don't know what the title problem is, and I don't know how quickly that's going to be.
If we could push it out, if it makes it easier for you guys, yeah, we have no problem
I want to give
with
you
pushing
more.
it out to the meeting after that.
Yeah, I would like
Yeah, that would be good.
problem.
If you can do the second meeting in September, that would be great.
Okay, well, so can we push it out a full month and put it in our second September meeting?
Our second or our first September meeting?
Second, he asked. We just said second.
Okay, I believe, I don't have that date written down, but I believe it is September 24th would be the date.
Okay, will it be a Tuesday? I don't have a calendar in front of me, unfortunately.
We have a meeting on September 10th, and then we would have the following meeting 2 weeks
So,
later.
24th. Yeah. So I would entertain a motion to continue this. Well, I should say, if anyone in the audience wants to be heard before I can bring the motion to continue, I'd hear them now. I don't see anybody. So I'll entertain a motion to continue this public hearing on file 15-2735 until our September 24th,
Yes,
September 24, 2024 meeting at 7 p.m.
So move.
Second.
We have a second. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Christian. The second is a continued public hearing on DEP file 15-2744. It's NOI 2431. It's on the notice of intent from Arlene Nunes to construct a 16-foot by 24-foot addition, a 20-foot by 24-foot garage and breezeway with a driveway relocation, as well as a 12-foot by 20-foot shed, 12-foot by 22-foot patio, and a 16-foot by 24-foot in-ground pool and patio with a safety fence, a boulder wall, and a temporary construction access, all within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. And they also want to remove trees deemed unsafe by the applicant within the bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02 and 10.55, as well as Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 109, lot 55. It's located at 28 Meadowbrook Drive. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. That passes unanimously. Is there someone here this evening on behalf of the applicant?
Good evening. For the record, Terry McGovern from Zenith Land Surveyors, and I'm going to share the plan so that everybody can see this. Actually, it says host disabled participant granted. So try. So that was all right. Hopefully, everybody can see the plan.
I can, yes. Thank you.
Okay, good. That's always a good start. We actually had continued this from when it was originally scheduled to be heard, which was a couple of weeks ago. Mark had expressed a couple of concerns, and I'll be as honest as I can about this proposal. There is a lot going on in it. We've attempted to reduce some of the impervious area, and I'll describe that process in a minute. But the overall site is your kind of typical 1960s subdivision neighborhood, a small ranch with no garage, just a small, what it exists as a small paved driveway and walkway in the front. Relatively small, filled in backyard area that slopes down to a little bit of a wooded area and then immediately into the wetlands. And Ms. Nunes, relocating from Florida, at least on a part-time basis to start, is building the addition. Her mother lives with her, so this is going to be her bedroom or living area, bedroom/living area, as is the patio, to screened patio or enclosed, to give her an opportunity to be outside. And the garage as well to park a vehicle in, and then the pool and the shed would be ancillary to the pool and any patio furniture that they had. Mark expressed two concerns reviewing the initial plan. One, that there is an existing grade to drain swale along the left-hand side of the property, and that boulder wall and some of the grading would have intruded into that a little bit. The second is that because of while the impervious area meets the zoning requirement, we have a table off to the left side of the plan that shows that we do meet the allowed 50%. We're going from 10 to about 22.5% of impervious area. It's a small upland backyard. There's not a lot of room. Somewhat of the lot area is in fact wetland in the rear. And so Mark expressed a concern to see if we could reduce that and find a way to handle that runoff. One of the notes that I made back to him was that because the backyard is probably general fill, that I wasn't too sure that recharge would work. While it's one of the first tools you reach for out of the toolbox, in some cases, if it's filled land, that's not necessarily going to be a good solution. So what we opted for was a rain garden, similar to some others that we've proposed in Dartmouth. We did a schematic with some plantings of the rain garden and species that could be placed in it, as well as going into the area basically behind the yard, which before Ms. Nunes took ownership of the property has lots of yard waste. There's actually some rubble back there. There's some pieces of concrete and pavement, etc., that will all get cleaned up, and that area will be enhanced and improved because of that process. So then last week we met on site and worked through a solution whereby we removed a good sized portion of the original patio that was proposed that would have wrapped from the addition kind of around the side and rear of the pool and back around, and then basically left a walkway to the shed and reduced the size of the shed a little bit to tighten in that grading, and then went with a proposed block wall instead of a boulder wall, which would have sloped down at about a 2 or 3 to 1 and taken up some more space. We then basically went back, reworked the changes on the plan, and submitted that to Mark. And I'll let Mark take it at this point, because we did have the discussions on site, but hopefully this is an acceptable solution. One of the things I'll note is that while we are slightly into the 25-foot no touch zone, that area is already being actively used as lawn area, and it's also an area that does have a lot of the debris in it. So we are cleaning up and basically trying to improve a little bit of that area by this proposal as well. with that, I'm going to defer to Mark for his thoughts on our reworked plan. And then I'll be available for questions after. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Mark, I would be interested to hear staff's comments on this amended proposal.
I think Terry did an excellent job in summarizing what has transpired over several weeks. The fact, actually, Terry, could you leave that up, just?
Yep.
Reference purposes. I think it's just easier that way.
Yep.
Terry is correct. Everything that is being proposed within an existing landscaped lawn area. So this is not encroaching on natural or, altered but natural conditions. It's not a wooded area. It's not a shrubby area. I agree that it is fill, as was the case the way they did things back in the 60s when the subdivision was built. Terry is right. The first proposal was an intense usage of a small area. This is still an intense use of a small buildable area. However, Terry's also right. It meets the impervious cover standards under residential zone B. So the issue is it too much? Maybe from an aesthetic, yes, but from a regulatory, no. My comments, as Terry indicated on the first set of plans, the regrading was going to potentially discharge runoff onto the adjacent lot, which is a no-no. You can't do that. I had hoped that they could redirect the water some way down gradient, and I think Terry did an excellent job. I think the proposed rain garden, while you would typically not see a rain garden in a circumstance like this, I think it's an excellent alternative and a vast improvement over infiltration. So I kudos to that. They did downside the shed. The shed was originally a 12 by 20. It is now a 10 by 18. Reducing impervious roof cover. They also took out, and I know they were going to use pavers, but pavers are still more impervious than the ground. They took out the paver patio around the pool, left the pool in place, but certainly reduced the hardscape. And they're cleaning up the debris. And there are 2 trees which I inspected weeks ago with Ms. Nunes. And they are, dangerously old, dangerously large, and dangerously proximal to the existing house, let alone the requested additions this evening. Having said all of that, I am prepared to recommend to the commission to issue a standard order of conditions to include our standard planting conditions for the rain garden area as per the revised plan, which we're looking at right now, dated August 7th, 2024.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any question, either of Terry or Mark? I don't see any. I'll now open it up to anyone in the public or in the audience that wants to be heard on this application. I don't see any. So at this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. I'll now entertain a motion for standard order of conditions to include our standard planting condition relating to the rain garden area as shown on the plan dated August 7, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
And my vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, everybody. Good night, and thank
Good
you,
night.
Mark.
Yep, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
So we're moving now to our third public hearing. And the third public hearing is on DEP file 15-2746. The NOI is 24-33. It's on the notice of intent from NStar Electric Company, doing business as Eversource Energy, care of Christopher Newall, to construct approximately 2.6 miles of new 115 kV overhead electric transmission line within the existing right-of-way, within bordering vegetated wetlands, an inland bank, riverfront area, and bordering land subject to flooding. The applicable regulations 310 CMR 10.02, 10.54, 10.55, 10.57, and 10.58. There's also Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws involved. It's on land described as Dartmouth's municipal boundary with New Bedford near Flaherty Drive and the municipal boundary with Fall River near Collins Corner Road. I entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Is there someone here this evening on behalf of NStar?
Yes, there is. My name is Chris Newhall. On behalf of NStar, I'm an employee of NStar with a address of 247 Station Drive out of Westwood, Massachusetts. And with me tonight, I have Karen Hanachek with Power Engineering, and as well as Lisa Pallone Clark, who is the overall project manager for this proposed overhead electric transmission line project. At this time, I'll introduce Karen again to maybe share some of our mapping for our proposed project area and describe the project in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. I'm trying to share, but it's saying sharing is not turned on.
Should be able to now.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So as stated, Eversource is proposing to construct, operate, and maintain approximately 2.6 miles of new 115 kV electric transmission line. And that will extend along an existing right-of-way corridor that is presently maintained and presently does have existing utility infrastructure co-located within it. This is Flaherty Drive, if you can see my hand, in New Bedford. So the municipal boundary is this pink line, and the project extends to the west within this existing utility corridor, extending towards High Hill Road, which is here, past the High Hill switching station, again in existing utility corridor, and now we're going west towards Flag Swamp Road, Collins Corner Road, and then it extends a little bit further west to the municipal boundary with the city of Fall River. This proposal is part of a larger project that is being jointly proposed by both Eversource and National Grid. And that larger project will continue the transmission line installation in the municipalities of Acushnet, New Bedford, and Fall River. The project is being proposed to address needs identified by the ISO New England, and that need is for additional transmission capacity within the southeastern Massachusetts area. And the project has gone through the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act review process And we did receive that certificate in August of 2023. Throughout the planning and the design phase of the project, Eversource did try to minimize wetland impacts to the extent practicable, both with a project of this extent. Some wetland impacts could not be avoided. Generally, the project was designed to meet the performance standards of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act. But this project also is classified as a limited project. There are temporary wetland impacts that will occur from the installation of work pads, pull pads, wire stringing pads within wetlands. And then on the mapping, the temporary wetland impacts are shown with the kind of yellow cross hatching that indicates timber construction matting will be installed in those locations. Permanent wetland impacts on this project are going to result from the installation of new transmission line structures. On this project, we have 3 structure locations that will be installed in a wetland. The first is here on screen, structure 55. That is a proposed monopole. So 1 pole will be installed within the limits of that wetland. The next location is structure 62. Again, that is a proposed monopole location, so 1 structure being installed. And then lastly, we have structure 70, which is an H-frame structure. So there will be 2 poles installed at the structure 70 location. So from those 3 structures in wetlands, there will be a total of approximately 131 square feet of proposed permanent impact. And to offset these impacts, Eversource has designed an approximately 2,479 square foot wetland replication area. That wetland replication area is located on Eversource fee-owned property that's in New Bedford and Acushnet. It's on the municipal boundary of those 2 locations. Eversource does have extensive best management practices manual and requires all contractors to adhere to those standards. That includes utilizing erosion and sediment controls to protect wetlands and water resources. The temporary wetland impacts, so again, the yellow cross hatching, that impact to wetlands will all be restored. Construction matting and the erosion and sediment controls will be removed at the end of the project, and the wetlands will be restored to pre-construction contours to the extent practicable. Eversource is also going to be implementing a wetland invasive species control plan with the intent to minimize the spread of invasive species in wetlands where they already occur, and to the spread of invasives to areas where they are not. During construction, Eversource is going to be assigning environmental compliance monitors to ensure compliance with all permit conditions that are issued for the project. And then lastly, there are a few areas of natural heritage and endangered species habitat kind of towards the western end in the town of Dartmouth that are traversed by the project. The Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program did issue a conditional no-take determination for the Eversource portion of the work. And Eversource is also going to be implementing rare species protection plans during construction which will minimize and avoid as adverse effects to listed species in these locations. That's the extent of my presentation. I guess, Chris, I'll see if you have anything additional you'd like to add from Eversource.
No, I think you've touched on all of the primary points of the project. And at this time, we turn it back over to Mark for any of his comments or other comments from the commission.
Thank you, Mark. I would be interested in hearing staff's comments on the Eversource proposal.
First and foremost, I want to say that the conservation staff understands the need for this project. And we are in no way trying to stand in the way. We understand power consumption is rising overall, and the generation and distribution of power to meet that need requires additional infrastructure to distribute and generate. So we are not at all against this project. We understand that it's taking place in a already impacted easement area dedicated to the very transmission of power in an existing condition. So we are looking forward to recommending support of this project at some point. My concerns that I had raised there were several. First, and I understand the rationale for Eversource and their consultants to provide such comprehensive and extensive documentation for a project of this magnitude. However, for a commission staff that deals with, a small portion of that project, my initial concern was the 1,248 pages of material was far in excess of what I could sit and honestly review in depth enough. So I had requested an executive summary, which had been submitted and received yesterday afternoon. And I quickly turned the copies around to the commission. I have read it. I have not really fully absorbed it as I was preparing for tonight's meeting and the several other public hearings and the issues related to those. So to say that I have a comprehensive understanding of those documents at this point would be incorrect. However, I would say that the way they were presented at my first glance seemed much more helpful. I do have a couple of questions related to the original submittal, what I could glean from that, and the additional information that I've partially assessed. I've noticed that there is minimal mention of the wetland protection bylaw, Town of Dartmouth Wetland Protection Bylaw. I know you did an extensive, comprehensive response to state regulations, but we also have a local bylaw. And what is significant of our local bylaw, which differs it from other towns, is we place a more significant premium on buffer zones. While they are not regulated areas, we do protect them. While they're not protectable resources, we do regulate them to an extent that approaches resource areas. And I'm not sure that that was totally taken into account. And that's one of the reasons that one of my comments relating to permanent impacts in Dartmouth, the benefits are being realized in other communities, and I understand the why, but my job is to look after Dartmouth's best interests, not everybody else's best interest in this case. So I'm still grappling with the lack of restoration in Dartmouth. However, Karen, you did mention something about an enhancement program, or excuse me, not an enhancement program, but an invasive species program management program, which is not incorporated in any of the documents that I've seen, correct?
There is a, let me see which attachment it was to the NOI. Appendix G on the notice of intent is a wetland invasive species control plan.
Okay, is
Um,
that you're proceeding with, or is that something that's going to be modified and enhanced? What's your initial intention?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Is
Got a
that
little feedback.
plan that you're proposing to go forward, or is that a draft that you are going to be modifying on an ongoing basis?
No, that's the plan to move forward with
Okay.
construction of the
I
project.
have not had a chance to look at that plan yet, so I can't say whether I agree or disagree with it. I'm gonna lean towards probably agreeing with it because I know the quality of your work. But I'd like to see that. Having said that, that would be, in my mind, a step toward Dartmouth realizing some benefit, some environmental, ecological benefit, even though we're not getting square footage benefit because that square footage has been calculated elsewhere. So I would think about that and consider that moving forward. The other thing that was very confusing to me, and I've been in this business for 40 years, so I think I know my stuff pretty well, but you, in the original documentation, and then I think you repeated it in the executive summary, you had a summary of impacts to wetland resource areas within the town of Dartmouth, provided in table 3.1 of the original submittal. I forget what appendix it was. I believe it was in section 3 of the attachments, one of the attachments to the NOI. And you list several permanent impacts of various resource areas, but you're going back to the 131 square feet of BVW impact. And I'm trying to grapple with, are you ignoring the riverfront area, bordering on and subject to flooding and wetland buffer zone impacts? In place, you've increased the BVW replication elsewhere in the project area outside of Dartmouth. I need a little clarification on that. I'm still grappling with that.
So I'm gonna share my screen again. Can you see that again?
Yep.
So in terms of, I guess I'll start with bordering land subject to flooding. I just so happen to be on that map page. We do have this work area around structure 74, which is almost entirely located in BLSF. This work pad at this location is going to be over excavated so that it does not impact the floodplain elevation. And there's this little cutout in the work pad here, which is not located in floodplain. So to offset the BLSF impact from the installation of structure 74, there will be compensatory flood storage offered at this portion of the work pad. So those impacts will be offset at this location. The work pads that are located within 100-foot wetland buffer will generally restore and revegetate after construction. Typically, they will go in and install gravel or stone at those work pad areas. And when construction is complete, that will either revegetate from the existing seed stock that is there, or if restoration is not meeting Eversource's standards, sometimes they'll go in and apply seed to those locations so that they do revegetate.
And this,
I'm not sure.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but this location is, as I read this plan, is immediately west of Flag Swamp Road, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yep. I'm not sure if that has answered your question, Mark.
Well, I think it does verbally. I think what would be nice if there was some graphic depiction of that. So that we understand it, so that when should we, and I believe we will, approve this project, that when we, assign the plans of record, that will be in the plan of record. I mean, it's something that I know you're intending, but we need to, our permit needs to be, have foundation pinning in certain documents and certain plans. So I would certainly suggest that as a slight modification to some of these plans, even if it's just a notation, that clarifies that.
Okay.
So that's that. And I do want to make one other point before I make any other comments. One of the things I think you mentioned it, Karen. I've worked with Eversource on many projects in the town of Dartmouth and in many projects outside of Dartmouth in a previous life. And I have no question about your temporary impact response, the way you protect resources and the like. So, and I think I made note of that in my comments. So as far as temporary construction impacts, you guys do a great job of, getting in there, protecting where you can and getting out with little or no evidence aside from the work that's done. If it's noticed, the overall outcome and purpose of the project. So please understand that I understand that. And, having experience with working with you folks, I know that your methods work, and I really don't question what you're proposing there. So I wanted to say that for the record. I guess I don't want to belabor this too much. I think I need to go over some of the documentation a little bit more thoroughly with the added information that I know. If you folks can modify the plans a little bit to show how you may be responding to the permanent impact issues. And, Karen, you just talked about a section of bordering land subject to flooding that, you're addressing. That would be helpful. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to spend time looking at that Appendix G, which frankly I haven't gotten to yet, and try to assess the kind of credit, the kind of enhancement credit I can afford in a recommendation to the commission, that while we're not, again, getting spatial compensation or replication in Dartmouth, maybe, getting functional improvement across the border in, again, a heavily managed, impacted corridor, a necessary corridor. That's what I would like to do. So I would recommend to the commission at this point, without going too much further, that we continue this to give me a little bit more time to finish my reading. And if I've got any more questions, pop them off to you guys to give you, some time to respond. I know you responded dutifully to my previous comments, but unfortunately those came in a little late and I really couldn't give them the time that they deserved. Commission policy is 5 days in advance, which was last Thursday. So I think I'm on pretty safe ground to request a continuance here with the intention of, looking at this in the context that I've described this evening.
Thank you, Mark. Understanding that you heard what Mark said, so the representatives from NSTAR, would you be amenable to a continuance?
Yes, we certainly would, and we appreciate all of Mark's comments. Specifically the extensiveness of the documentation that's often required for other permitting partners such as DEP and Army Corps of Engineers. So, you know, perhaps we have erred on the side of including too much information as opposed to too little. But I do like the executive summary aspect of what Mark has requested, and I do think that that'll probably be a kind of a standard component of my applications kind of moving forward, just to again be able to facilitate review by boards, all volunteer boards such as yourself.
Thank you. Mark, would next meeting be?
Yeah, I'll have this wrapped up, hopefully before midweek next week.
Okay. Is there any commissioner that wants to add anything? Is there anyone in the audience for this particular public hearing? Okay, I don't see any. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to continue public hearing on DEP file 15-2746 until our next scheduled public hearing on Tuesday, August 27, 2024 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you for your
Great.
presentations.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good night. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Good night.
Our next public hearing, which is number 4, is public hearing on DEP file 15-2748, NOI 24-34. It's on the notice of intent, from the Carney Family Irrevocable Trust of 1998 to construct a single-family dwelling, driveway, utilities, and pool within land subject to coastal storm flowage and the 100-foot buffer zone to a freshwater wetland. The applicable regulation is 310 CMR 10.02, 10.04, as well as Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaw. The land is described as map 113, lot 20-1. It's located on Rockland Farm. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. And Christian, you're here on behalf of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to present something full disclosure if I could.
Go
I
right
happen to know Pat and Ned Carney. They're both members of the yacht club, and I see them frequently at the club. I also noticed that in the audience, there was a person named Mike Phillips. Mike Phillips was the contractor at my condo some 35 years ago. And after it was done, I have not seen him since. But I just wanted to give full disclosure. And I also want to state that the fact that I know these people will in no way affect my judgment, my opinion, or my duties as a commissioner concerning any votes or any decisions that have to be made.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate the disclosure. I don't have the opinion that would disqualify you from voting or require you to recuse yourself. I think that you are free to participate in the meeting and vote.
Thank you.
So, Christian, the floor is yours. I'm assuming you're taking the lead on this.
It's actually me, Chris Gilbert from Farland Corp Engineering.
Oh, okay. Okay, I saw Christian's name still up
Yeah.
there. So, okay, nice
Is
to
that
meet
right if I share my screen?
it is perfectly acceptable.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so this is map 113 lot 20-1. It's a vacant lot at the end of Rockland Farms. This is the road Rockland Farms right here. It ends right here. You have the lot here, and then it abuts Buzzards Bay to the southeast. As I said, the lot's vacant. Its majority of it is maintained lawn area. There's scattered mature trees throughout the lot, but the lawn extends up to the beech shrubbery, which is this wavy line here. And then the other side of the shrubbery is this green line here, which is actually the top of Coastal Bank as well. And then these other green lines we have are FEMA flood zone lines. Easterly of this line is velocity zone elevation 24. You have this line and this line here, you have elevation VE elevation 22. Between this line and this line, you have VE elevation 20. And between this line and this line, you have VE elevation 19. And then westerly of this line and following the 18 contour is AE elevation 18. This blue line here is the 100-foot buffer to the top of Coastal Bank. And then westerly side of the lot, we have vegetated wetlands here shown in green. And then the pink line here is the 25-foot buffer. And then we have the blue line here, which is the 100-foot buffer to that wetland. Zoom in a little. So in 2014, fill was added to this area here. And a letter of map revision was issued, removing this area from the flood zone. That boundary line is this gray thick dash line here. And as you can see, we situated the proposed single-family dwelling within that area removed from the flood zone. So we have the dwelling here, garage, driveway, which extends over actually across lot 20, which will have a access and utility easement to allow access to the lot, because when you move down Rockland Farm, it gets rather steep right here. So accessing from the lot frontages would be quite difficult. There is a terrace here off the house, which does extend into the velocity flood zone. And then you have some minor grading off of the terrace. The maximum slope on that grading is 6:1. The entire roof will be recharged into 2 subsurface recharge chambers. The sump pump will also be connected to this recharge chamber here. Also being proposed is this pool area over here to the north. We have the 20-by-40 pool as well as a terrace. The seaward side of the pool has a 4-foot retaining wall. That construction of that pool occurs, you got the velocity zone VE20 and velocity zone 22 here. We have proposed separate erosion control, that's silt fence and straw wattle around the limit of work. One area for the dwelling and driveway, and then a separate area for the pool. Those also have separate construction entrances there. The pool, it is in a velocity zone. I submitted letters in the online portal, I believe yesterday. I'm sorry for the late submittal. They're basically letters from the architect and structural engineer, just certifying that the pool and patio area will be built to state and local building codes, as well as regulations for structures and land subject to coastal stone flowage. This area on the lot was chosen. Basically, when you view the Buzzards Bay from the house, we were trying to hide the pool away so it wasn't always in view, especially during those winter months when it's just covered with a pool cover. The other benefit of it being in this area, it's isolated away from any other structures. So any storm wave action that may hit the pool wall and deflect is not hitting other structures. See, and the only other aspect of this project is the water main needs to be extended down Rockland Farm so that we can service it to the lot. So I will go to page 2 to further show that. You can see the locus here, the water service line here. This is the end of the 6-inch water main extension that will run down the road and then cross over to the other side of the road and connect here. That work is also within the 100-foot buffer to the wetlands. I believe that is about the extent. I will open up to any questions or comments from the commission.
Thank you, Chris. Mark, I would like to hear staff's comments on this application.
Yeah, we've been out to the site, we've looked at it, we're pretty familiar with it. And you know, it's a large house typical of that area of town. So it's certainly within scope of its surroundings. Our only issue is the location of the pool. We're talking about a hardscape structure with retaining walls in a 20 to 22 foot velocity zone. We are seeing more increased storms. We are seeing more storm damage. We are seeing regulation and policy that is more restrictive of this type of construction, types of areas. And these are being proposed at an elevation of, I forget, 5 to 7 feet within a 20-foot velocity zone. And while it may be tucked away and out of sight and out of mind from the house, Wave Action could break this up and move materials off-site and elsewhere. I am not comfortable with this location because I believe that there are alternatives on-site, maybe not as palatable, but certainly on-site where there's less risk. And one of the alternatives I mentioned in my comments was to relocate the pool to the rear of the house. I know many pools that are right behind homes with covers in the winter. People can survive with that, and combine that structure with the terrace that is off the rear of the house, and largely in an area that has received a LOMA, a letter of map revision, and where it might extend off into some floodplain. It's in a velocity zone or an AE zone much higher on the landscape than where they're proposing it. This is a very low area, and I would bet that at times we get a storm propagating, and it's the same old question along the west shore of Clark's Cove. It's got a 14-mile southeast fetch to Woods Hole in the Elizabeth Islands, and as typical nor'east storms and tropical storms pass by New England, if they go offshore, the frontage winds are generally the strongest, and they come from the southeast before the storm passes. I just think that this is a riskier location for a hardscape structure. And I think that there is an alternative which certainly is better served for the environment and for the surrounding neighborhood. I should also say that when we evaluate projects, and this is a forgotten art, but the first threshold you must meet is the project avoidable or unavoidable. If there's an alternative, it's avoidable. Second is the project minimized if unavoidable? I don't know that I'm suggesting this project that the pool should be made smaller, but it certainly can be relocated in a different alternative. Third, what's the mitigation if it's unavoidable and you can't minimize it? I don't think mitigation is an issue here, given the current the lack of performance standards for a coastal 100-year floodplain. However, safety, damage are concerns. And again, I go back to the first threshold. I believe there's an alternative site on this, an alternative site for this pool on site. Might not be as palatable as this location for some, but it is certainly a more environmentally appropriate location. And as far as I saw the letter, Chris, I saw the letter from the architect. I don't recall seeing a letter from a structural engineer.
I believe I uploaded them both at the same time. They essentially have the same verbiage. One's just from the structural engineer. They might have a similar title as well.
The verbiage is the same. It's saying will be designed and certified by a licensed structural engineer. So this has not been designed by a structural engineer. We're just looking at a layout plan, and that makes me a little bit more concerned. I'd like to see something that meets the standard before I approve it, then on the theory that it will meet the standard.
Understood.
And based on my comments, I mean, the commission is certainly, can certainly issue an order of conditions if they want. I'm not prepared to recommend that at this time.
Appreciate your comments, Mark. Chris, you've heard Mark's comments, and he is making a fairly strong case about whether this is unavoidable, particularly the pool. I mean, I don't think I heard anything negative or any comments relative to anything other than the pool. Am I correct on that, Mark?
The pool location,
The pool location. I'll be more specific.
but it's the pool location.
Yeah. So, not that Mark's trying to help with the design or anything of that sort, but he did indicate that there were other locations on site that would be safer for a pool to be located. And has that been considered?
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Just
step in.
identify yourself for the record, Christian.
Christian Fallon, Principal Engineer and President of Fallon Corp. We've been working on this site for a couple of years now with the architect, landscape architect client. With the pool location where it is, another reason why we have it over there, the ground's a lot more level in that area. In the backyard behind the house now, I mean, you'll see the plans, the slope there is just, it would be very difficult for us to place that pool in that location just with the slope. And really the velocity zone in that area behind the house is elevation 18, and where it is now, I believe it's elevation 20 or close to it. I mean, in theory, in any storm of that nature, whether the pool is in the location we're proposing or the location where in theory it would typically make sense to put it behind the house, but I think in this case it's really irrelevant, because if we're going to have a storm of that nature, like I said, the pool's going to have the same destruction wherever it is. So we feel with the site the way it is, keeping it away from the house, we feel it has better protection. Not only protection, but also it gets it away from the house. And then construction wise, it would be very difficult to place that size pool on that slope. We would be bringing in a lot more fill, and the retaining walls would be a lot higher, which again would be in the velocity zone. Right now, we only have a 4-foot wall where it is. If we place it behind the house, which we have done, and I can show Mark the plans that we had, I think we had like a 10-foot wall back there. So it makes it very difficult. And I think if we ever have a storm, I think it'll be more disturbance with trying to design a 10-foot wall in a velocity zone. So that was another reason why we have it where it is. I just wanted to let the board know that we did look at other areas, but with the slope, it just made it very difficult to keep it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian.
Mr. Chairman, if I could respond to that.
Sure.
I don't think that the sloping is that severe that it would not make that alternative constructible. That's a matter of opinion, but it's not that severe. What I would also note is if you look at the green line that bisects the terrace next to the house,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is a borderline between a V zone and an AE zone. Okay, while they do suggest that the VE zone is 17, the actual floodplain, not the velocity zone, but the 100-year floodplain, which is where water could reside, is at 18 feet. I would submit that based on that those designations of that line, that is a far more calm flooding condition during a major storm than being in a velocity zone where the pool is now, where the dividing line is between two velocity zones of 22 feet and 20 feet. And I'm not a coastal engineer. I'm not a structural engineer, but I've seen a lot of floodplain work. And we have made a lot of unwise decisions in floodplains that we're paying for now. And I do believe that the alternative closer to the house, while not risk-free, is far less risk than the location of the pool as it's presented on this plan. And unless somebody can show me structurally how that's different, I will be hard pressed to change my opinion.
Yeah, I totally understand what Mark's saying with, you know, with the flood zone. We could certainly prepare that plan to give you an idea what it looks like behind the house. Or, I mean, at this time, and we may want to just pull the pool off it now, and because we really want to get this structure started, I know this season. So it may be something that we pull it off until we get going out here and see what the grades look like. Let me ask Mark, if we pull the house, I mean, if we pull the pool in that patio area off the plan for now, will the board be able to vote tonight on just the house?
That's a question for the board, whether they want to do that or not. We would have to have a revised plan date.
Sure.
You know, for a record plan, which we don't have, so that would be against the vote for tonight. They could condition to approve the plan dated here with the removal of the pool from the plan. I don't know how comfortable they are with that. If they want to, you know, approve with some sort of condition eliminating the pool, that's, if the pool is eliminated either on a revised plan or by condition, I'm comfortable with that moving forward with the house plan and the what I would call the land side development here. I have no issues with that. But I would leave that to the commission for their discretion as to how they want to proceed.
Well, Mark, I think from my perspective, I would not be uncomfortable voting on the plan as submitted with the condition that the pool and the patio around the pool is not being approved and will not be built unless there's a separate application. And the reason being, I know in other cases, we've always required a revised plan to be actually presented at least 5 days before the meeting. But in this case, we're taking something off of a plan, not putting something on a plan. So I think it's a lot easier because there's no ambiguity of what we're doing.
I'm comfortable with that. I'm not in a position to make that decision. That's something for the commission to do. As I said, I'm comfortable either way.
Understood. Commissioners, do you have any questions of either Christian, Chris, or Mark? And then after that, what's your feeling about voting on the existing plan, but with a condition that the pool and pool patio not be approved and be subject of a separate request or a separate NOI?
I have no problem with that at all, Mr. Chair. As Mark had suggested and what you had just suggested, with the pool being removed from the plan as well as the patio around the pool, and our vote would pertain to the house.
Any other commissioner?
I'm of the same opinion as Richard.
I
Okay,
agree.
thank you. And Megan, appreciate that. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak on this application? Mark, before I close the public hearing, question for you. If the pool and the pool patio's taken off, what's your recommendation for the remaining portion of the plan that's been presented?
Staff would recommend the issuance of a standard order of conditions. With an added condition that the pool and pool terrace located within the velocity zone to land subject to coastal storm flowage be removed and not be constructed as part of this authorization.
Okay. That's the recommendation of staff. So commissioners, I'm going to, at this point, I didn't hear anybody or see any hands raised from the audience, so I'm going to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, I'll now entertain a motion for a standard order of conditions with the specific condition that the pool and pool terrace or patio, which is shown in the velocity zone, be removed from the plan and not be approved without the issuance of a separate order of conditions on a separate application for notice of intent.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Oh, Mark, I don't think we had the date of the plan.
Date of the plan is July 10th, 2014.
Okay, so I'll just make I'd entertain a motion to just amend that seconded motion to include the plan date of July 10, 2024.
I'm sorry, if I may.
Yeah.
I believe that I have a July 31st date.
Yeah, you're right there.
Okay, July 31st then. July
Those
31st.
are the DPW comments, right, Chris?
Yes.
That's right. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah,
So
July
that-
31st.
July 31, 2024. I just want to, I think we'll just make a motion to add that amendment to the currently seconded motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
I'm a yes. That passes unanimously. Now we have the amendment to the motion, which was been seconded. Now we're going to go on the original motion as amended. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. So thank you for your presentations, gentlemen. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And if you want the pool, obviously you're going to get a separate plan to show Mark and work with them. And I think we can find a location for your pool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're very
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, we're moving now to our fifth public hearing, which is a hearing on DEP file 15-2747 NOI 25-35. It's an after the fact notice of intent from Francis Grisot to clear land for the eventual construction of a single family home. It's within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regulations 310 CMR 10.02, 10.55, and Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaw. It's on land described as map 165, lot 36, otherwise known as 15 Delano Street. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second on that motion, please.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Is there someone here this evening on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, hi, I'm John D'Souza, North County Group, and here with me is Francis Grisot of True Brother.
Very good. You've got the floor. You want to put your
Uh,
presentation on?
Yeah, could I share my screen, please?
Yes, you can.
So, Mr. Grisot had taken possession of this property. It was an old,
Any plan? Nothing has come up.
oh. Huh. Oh, better click on share. Can you see it now?
Not yet. I've got the border though, showing a border, green border. So that's a start. Now I do.
Okay.
Yep. And came in now.
Okay. So, Mr. Grisot, took ownership of this, property, and in doing so, he noticed that, the, whole lot was overgrown and basically filled with a lot of, trash, debris and whatnot. So he ended up starting to clean up the yard and the house, right around the structure. And he actually went into the 25-foot, the 25-foot zone on the backside where the wetlands are. And he actually even removed some of the trash from the wetlands itself. He ended up taking out 4 40-yard dumpsters of rubbish out of this lot. And he didn't realize that he was into the wetlands, and I didn't know what he was doing until the day before he received the letter from Mark saying that he was in a possible violation of doing work near and within the wetland area. So we contacted Mark after we received the letter. Spoke with him, said that we're gonna go out there, we flagged up where the wetlands were, and then seeing exactly what was removed. And basically what he has removed is a lot of the overgrown that was out there. He also, I know he removed a lot of trash, and basically opened up the site. And unfortunately, he had redone this without the knowledge of the wetland line on the back. So he realizes that there's a wetland line, so he knows that he has to stay away from that wetland line. And what we propose to do is basically stake off the 25-foot area, so he can put in some fence and wattles along it, so he can finish doing the cleanup on the front portion of the property. Once that is complete, then he's gonna prepare another notice of intent to remove the existing house, because it's very close to the right-hand side property line. And he's gonna propose a new house located basically in the middle of the lot. And at that time, we'll also do the site planning. We'll make sure that whatever is proposed meets all the regulations currently in place. So, if the commission has any questions.
Thank you, John. Mark, I'd like to hear the staff comments on this request.
Yeah, this has been a long-standing issue with the town, preceding, I think, Mr. Grisot's ownership. There was an elderly person living there, and concerns were not with conservation, but specifically with the Council on Aging and Board of Health relative to the condition of the structure. and its suitability for habitation by or human habitation, let alone a senior. So the site has been monitored quite extensively, and actually we were alerted to the issue by the Board of Health that we're here discussing this evening. Mr. Grisot, or a party working with Mr. Grisot, went in and cleaned up the site, vegetation wise, garbage wise, all very noble efforts. However, there's one problem. Nearly the entire site is subject to conservation jurisdiction, either because of the wetlands as depicted to the rear of the site on the plan you're looking at, and the 100-foot buffer zone, which extends out to near Delano Street, across the entirety of the lot. I would suspect that where it arches into Delano Street, it flares back and runs, and I think it shows in lighter right along that boundary. So anything that Mr. Grisot or anyone does on this site is subject to permitting from the Conservation Commission. The work that they were doing was technically in violation, although I understand it was probably beneficial to the site all around. So we required a cease and desist on them, which we placed in a letter which John D'Souza referenced earlier. And we required them to file an after the fact notice of intent, which they have done today. And in that notice of intent, we wanted them to basically present to us some sort of stabilization, restoration of the site to get it stable, because it was basically a heavily vegetated thicket. And now it's largely devoid of woody vegetation, although herbaceous vegetation, invasive types have, recolonized the ground. So as you go by the lot today, there's green cover on it. However, probably not suitable for a residential use, and certainly being reclaimed by the very plants that were removed previously. So having said all that, I think that what they proposed is consistent with what we required in our letter. And I'm proposing that we issue, or I'm recommending that the commission issues a standard order of conditions per this plan, which is dated, I believe, July 15th, 2024, with an added condition, which I will read into the record. And that condition is: the applicant or any successor in interest shall file a follow-up notice of intent to include the proposed redevelopment of the site to a single-family residential use and the full restoration plan with proper scheduling and specification to revegetate the impacted jurisdictional wetland resources and or regulated 100-foot buffer zone with woody vegetation, appropriate native shrubs and trees by November 14th, 2024. Should the applicant or successor in interest not be prepared to apply for the redevelopment of the site at that time, the commission shall still require an NOI to be filed for the required restoration work as described above by the same November 14th, 2024. I think to try to replant this site or restore it in any environmental way in the fall would be useless, because you'd basically have plants trying to adapt and overwinter. I think the restoration could take place next spring into next growing season. I think that would be very suitable. I do believe that the site in its current condition is fairly stable. So that is my recommendation.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any question? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this request? Once again, I don't see anyone. At this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
A second on that?
Second.
Seconded motion. It's on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
Megan?
yes,
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, I'll entertain a motion to issue a standard order of conditions on the plans dated July 15, 2024, with the added condition as articulated by Mr. Garrett, which essentially says that the applicants and their successors in interest shall file a notice of intent no later than November 14, 2024, either for single-family home with the associated vegetation plan, or if no single-family home has been proposed at that time, at least the vegetation and maintenance plan.
So moved.
Have a second on that? Seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan?
yes,
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, John.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Mark, do we have a DEP file number for the sixth hearing?
We do not, and we also, just for the record, this has not even been on record as being filed with DEP. And I do not believe there is a representative here this evening. I don't know why. I thought they would be here. If I could give the commission a little bit of background on this.
Let me read it in first.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll do that first. Understand, you've already heard, we don't have a DEP file number, so we can't close it, number one. And number two, it looks like they haven't even filed with DEP yet, so this is an issue. Anyway, it's a public hearing. There's no DEP file number. We have our NOI number of 2437. It's an after-the-fact notice of intent from Paul Raposo for driveway improvements, stonework, and construction of a pool, perimeter fencing, and an enclosure for various fowl and restoration plantings within a 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regs are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.55, as well as Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaw. The land is on map 39, lot 11, 709 Russell's Mills Road. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Have a second on that, please.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan?
yes,
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Mark, now I'd be interested to hear the background.
Okay, I'll try to make this short and sweet, although this is a rather complicated filing. First off, this has been a long and arduous campaign in dealing with the property owners and the actual applicant, who is the brother of the property owners, who I believe lives in Fairhaven, that being Mr. Paul Raposo. This site has been the subject of various development over the course of time, much of it pre-existing wetland regulation. But some of that development, which has included house development, driveway development, and the construction of various chicken coop and waterfowl enclosures, has occurred both on and off-site. Off-site to the neighbor to the north, off-site to the neighbor to the northwest, who happened to be the Cornell family. But those of you who follow town meeting will note that the Cornell sold that property last year to the town of Dartmouth Water Department. So now there is construction, unauthorized construction on town-owned land. Having said all that, the Board of Health has had issues because the animals, largely waterfowl, some small mammals, tend to run rampant through the neighborhood. They have a separate issue going on with these people, but they are tying their decision to our decisions moving forward. So we suggested several times and finally convinced somebody to contract with a consultant, in this case Brandon Faniff, who has gone out there and prepared a restoration plan to pull the structures out of jurisdiction onto the property, propose a wetland buffer zone restoration to the rear of the property, which is onto the town-owned land. They have received support and authorization from the neighbor to the northeast, although I have not seen anything from the town supporting that they do work on town-owned property. It took staff an incredible amount of time. Staff was subject to some inappropriate behavior by the applicant. We've resolved that. We're trying to move it forward. They did finally pay our filing fees. They exchanged cash with the day of our site visit for the state submittal, but to date, I don't know where or what has happened with that. What I can tell you is that we are largely in agreement with the proposal that Brendan Ecosystem Solution has proposed to bring this site into wetland compliance, given the nature of what's taken place out there. There's one small piece that we'd like to have added, which we can certainly discuss when we actually can hear this, and that is a vegetated strip along the northeastern property line so that animal waste can be mitigated naturally before discharging nutrients and bacteria into the the down gradient pond on an abutting property, that pond being privately owned, and the indications are subjected to extensive nutrient loading at this time, probably caused in part by the animals. Having said that, I mean, I'm not trying to advocate the project. I think it's something that we have to take care of and clean up, but I would warn the commission. This has been a very difficult task for staff, both Jenna and myself. And we have invested a whole lot of time in trying to get this resolved. Brendan Faniff has been very helpful as the consultant. Board of Health has been helpful on their part. But this has been a very difficult situation with not so cooperative participants from the other side at all times. They seem to have calmed down and they understand that they've got issues they've got to correct. My concern that this, while we haven't issued an enforcement order yet, we are well overdue. This should have been filed back in June 27th of this year, and we're hearing it on August 13th without a file number from the state, so we really can't close the hearing and get the work done that needs to be done, and that is of a level of concern for me, as many projects are doing right now, and we will discuss a few in a couple of minutes. These enforcement and violation projects just are starting to get more numerous and more legs to them.
Well, I agree with you, Mark, that we can't really get into any detail on what may be lacking in what was submitted, since we don't even have a representative of the applicant here, let alone the applicant. So we'd be speaking to no one, and that would be no good. My recommendation, when we get a chance to vote, is to continue this for the 2 week until next meeting. But in the meantime, to basically let Brandon know that, he should show up for the next meeting. And I would suggest that maybe in that communication, you might want to give him your thoughts, because he may well want to make some revisions and submit them timely.
He's aware of the things that we discussed tonight.
All right, well, if he's going to have to address those, and if they mean changing the plan, he should be aware of the fact that he might want to get his amended plan in time for us to actually vote on it, assuming they get a number. Now, if he tells us they haven't even applied to Mass DEP,
All I can tell you is they don't appear on the Mass DEP dashboard. We can go online to a dashboard, and when DEP gets the filing fee and gets the filing, they post the number. Well, they post the filing received first. It takes them a week and a half to 2 weeks to issue a number. They eventually get the number, and then they report when we submit an order, should we vote on that. And in that portal, they make their technical comments. So if they have anything to say about the file, we know about it and we can forward it to you, which I've done in the past, and to the client so they can see it. We don't have any of that from the state side. It doesn't even show up as existing on the state side.
I understand that. I guess the concern I have is, though, that I want Brandon at the next meeting. It'd be better if he comes with one of his clients, and I want him to explain where they are in the process of getting the DEP file number. And if the answer is we haven't yet submitted, I don't know what to say, other than I think at that point I'm going to say we're going to turn it over to town council, because this is just
That would be the next step, yeah.
This is just ridiculous. Okay. And there's no reason for it. But anyway, I digress. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this? Okay, I don't see anyone. So I will entertain a motion to continue this public hearing for 2 weeks until our next public hearing on August 27, 2024 at 7 p.m. With the request that the applicant and or applicant's representative be present at that meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. That concludes the public hearings. We now go to items for discussion. And Mark, you've got enforcement issues you want to discuss. I'll turn the microphone, if you will, over to you.
Okay. So the first issue is authorization to request town council involvement. I sent the commissioners packages probably about a week ago. There were 3 sites: 16 Nathan Drive, 1363, 1395 North Hicksville Road. That's 2 abutting sites. It's one issue. And then 1031 Old Fall River Road. In order, at the time of the letter that we wrote, the second letter of violation indicating that they had failed to meet the August 1st deadline, the second letter being dated on August 2nd. Nathan Drive was 65 days past due. The North Hicksville Road site was 84 days past due, and the Old Fall River Road site was 64 days past due. That's 2 weeks ago. So add the days, and you'll see that they're to the 70s and 80s already. It is getting to the point where we're spending more time writing letters and chasing people down than getting any enforcement accomplished. I had also put together draft requests for town council, which I have sent out to you, and I've sent out to the town administrator and to town council. And what I'm asking for is authorization to tell the interim town administrator to authorize town council to get involved in these, because we're getting nowhere fast and, you know, we've got violations piling up. We've got more coming in and, that's what we're spending our time doing. And, we need some help. I will say that after the, August 2nd letter, the North Hicksville Road and the, Old Fall River Road site contacted us immediately and said, we're trying. Well, that's fine, you know, try, and if you get it in, we'll give you some reconsideration. However, at this point, I think it's very appropriate to engage town council on these, and see if they can assist in leveraging some action from these people.
I agree completely, and I think that, you know, in the future, there's only we should think about putting a limit on how many times you have to try and get somebody to do something before it goes to town council. And I don't know that I would suggest a number tonight, but it'd be an item for discussion another evening, because otherwise we'll be just chasing people who refuse to do what they're supposed to do.
Well, I should tell you that, you know,
And there's gotta be some penalty for that, Mark.
no, I know, but you know, we tried to be somewhat considerate because as you know, getting qualified consultants to do work these days is really hard. You know, so we used to require, you know, turnarounds of 2 to 4 weeks. We gave them a couple of months to engage people and at best we got some lip service, myself and you, Mr. Chairman, from one particular individual, and no action, you know, so, yeah, I don't know what we can do. I mean, we try to be considerate of the workload situation out there, and that, you know, we got burned in these 3 cases because people just sat on their thumbs.
Well, I'm going to make a recommendation, Mark. My recommendation is we're not going to give them that much time. We're going to give them far less time and say, you have to bring us evidence that you've contacted these professionals. And if you have, we'll give you more time. Rather than give them all this time and trust them to do the right thing. I think that they just figure there's nothing to do. I've got 2 months to do something. And then time goes by and haven't done a damn thing.
Right.
And so that's my suggestion. And I understand some of it could be innocent. Okay. That happens. People procrastinate and before they know it, months have gone by. That can happen. Some of it's intentional. Okay. And the intention is hopefully we forget about it. Okay. And it's before you know it, it's like, oh, good. I didn't have to do anything because they didn't do anything to me. Well, I'm getting the feeling that those days of us not doing anything are done. We're going to start doing things. And if it means that people have to spend thousands of dollars to defend themselves in court and pay thousands of dollars of fines, so be it. Let them complain to town administration because it's in their hands. They didn't do the right thing to begin with. And then they didn't do the right thing after they were told what to do. So I don't have any sympathy if they go broke. Go broke. File bankruptcy. I don't care what you do. But I'm not going to just sit back and let the laws be disregarded. We all abide by the same set of laws. And if we can't do that, then sell the damn property and give it to somebody who will abide by the law. Or leave and go somewhere where you can be your own, you know, fiefdom. You can be your own sovereign, but not in this community. I'm sorry. That bothers me when people blatantly disobey the law and then expect us to forgive them. I don't forgive. I'm sorry. Comply.
I'm looking for an authorization to.
You got it. I'm gonna entertain a motion to authorize Mark to request town council's intervention on the matters that he mentioned.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard.
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Megan.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Mark, you have our authorization.
Thank you much. Second item is, we have an issue on 46 Milton Street. and Sherman Street. We have a party that has been doing improvement work, as they like to call it, on Sherman Street. It may or may not be within jurisdiction of wetlands. We're not sure, and we're not going out there. They need to get somebody to figure it out. We've been on their backs. They have not responded. I submitted to you in the packet a draft enforcement order, which is completely filled out, requiring them to, let's see, what did I say here? To properly permit jurisdictional activities if appropriate, and to restore any impacted jurisdictional or regulated lands as required. For the storage of equipment and the improvements to various land elements, including paper streets and the like. So I'm looking for you to approve that enforcement order so it can go out.
I hear you. I'm just curious. You said you don't know if they have anything that they violated anything. So how
Told
can
them to
we,
get a wetland A1, and they have not done it. We've told, excuse me, not an A1. We've told them to get a consultant to flag wetlands out there, and they have not done it.
okay, so now if we're going to issue an enforcement order,
To force them to get it done.
all right, okay,
That's the motivation.
I follow that. All right, I'll entertain a motion to authorize the issuance of the letters that were drafted by Mr. Garrett, sent to the commissioners as a packet.
So moved.
A second on that?
Second,
Second.
second.
We have a roll call vote on this. Richard,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That passes unanimously.
Thank you. The last item, which is the best item, actually, is I reported to the commission a few weeks back about what I suspected to be quite a grand wetland issue off of Slade Street, behind an existing residence. There's also zoning violations and other violations in town. Everybody was playing hands off. The commission recommended me to continue trying to figure out what was going on relative to wetland impacts. And we did that. We sent a letter to the property owner indicating what we suspected. The property owner engaged a land surveyor consultant who he has used quite often. The property owner is Mr. Gabriel Tavares. And what we came up with in conjunction with the surveyor was that buildings were built in paper streets, also within wetlands within the paper streets, and within wetlands on a particular lot owned by Mr. Tavares. And the total wetland impacts, as I could calculate them, I suspected they would have to be more accurately digitized, is 23,670 square feet, or basically a little over a half an acre of wetland impact, fill, building construction, and the like. The surveyor said that he thumbnailed it at about 25,000 square feet. We don't have an exact number, but we know that number is around 24,000 square feet, give or take. This is a massive wetland impact. It is there are building issues out here in the paper streets. This is a huge legal matter. I'm asking the commission to authorize me to prepare a draft enforcement order, which I will get to you, and we will get out to these people, if you so approve, to get this matter under some sort of control.
I would certainly recommend the issuance of such a letter as long as it's clear we're only speaking about the wetlands issue,
That's all I'm
not
speaking.
about the paper street issue, not about any other zoning or any other issue. Let those other departments send their letters. And maybe
not-
in that instance,
Mr. Chairman, I'm not asking for a letter. I'm asking for an enforcement order. We've already sent a letter. That's what got us.
enforcement order, then, okay.
This is an enforcement order.
So I'll entertain a motion to authorize the issuance of an enforcement order as requested by Mr. Garrett.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yep.
Megan,
Yes.
and my vote is yes, passes unanimously.
And before that goes out, I will get you all a copy of the draft so that you can review it to make sure that you're comfortable. There will be a scope of work assigned to it, and then I want to make sure you're comfortable with that.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that's it for me.
I have nothing new, so I guess that's it for the meeting. At this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
my vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Night.
everyone. Thank you,
Right,
Mike.
thank you.